Hello YouTube, and welcome to the next route learning video. And I'd also like to welcome those of you joining the PTG Rail channel for the first time. On today's journey we're going to be travelling along the brand new Midland mainline route which was released just today. And we're going to be travelling from Bedford to St Pancras Thameslink in a class 319. We will be calling at Flitwick, Harlington, Leagrave, Luton, Luton Airport Parkway, Harpenden, St Albans, West Hempstead Thameslink and finally St Pancras Thameslink. The total distance for this journey is around 49 3/4 miles. The Class 319 was built in 1987 and 1988 and a total of 86 of these trains were built with 4 coaches per train set, and they were built at Brell, York. The maximum speed of these trains is 100 miles per hour and the weight of each unit is 155 tonnes. So as I mentioned, it's a dual voltage unit, which means it can run on the 25 kilovolt overhead system along the Midland Main Line, and as it travels from St Pancras Thameslink down towards London Bridge and Brighton, it then switches to the 750 volt third rail DC system. Once in the cab of the Class 319, the first thing I have to do is move the reversing handle into neutral and then reset the AWS and driver safety device self-test sequence. I've now also moved the reversing handle into forward, just to say that this isn't the Class 319 that came with the route but the original Class 319, so I was able to use the Armstrong Powerhouse sound pack with this, which also includes improvements to the train handling itself. I'm now going to open the doors. As you can see here, we have a standard Westcode 3-step brake and we also have a 4-step power handle. Also on this train I can open the windows, which will enable us to hear the train better and hear the air rushing past as we move along. And so now we're almost ready to depart. As it's now time to depart from Bedford, I've just pressed R to close the doors. That's one of the features of the Armstrong Powerhouse sound pack, driver only operation, which means driver operated doors. And then I turned off the driver reminder appliance as our signal is clear ahead of us. Though we do have to bear in mind that it is a single yellow signal, so I do have to drive with caution, assuming that the next signal is red until I can see otherwise. So departing from Bedford, the starting speed limit is 30 miles per hour. And we've got just under 9 3/4 miles to go to the next stop, which is Flitwick. As we reach 30 miles per hour, I am going to idle the power and allow the train to coast until we're able to accelerate further. My first thoughts on this route, having now driven through it a couple of times, are that it's a very well put together route and it looks really good, but it is a little bit short, especially if you want to drive East Midlands trains HSTs along here. In fact, it only takes about 40 minutes non-stop from Bedford to St Pancras, with only really one potential stop in between, which is Luton. The speed limit here is going up to 75 miles per hour, however it's quickly going down to 50 as we're going to be crossing to the right onto the fast lines. The next signals are now coming up, so I'm allowing the train to continue to coast. And in fact I'm going to apply the brakes in a moment until I can see that the signal is displaying any aspect other than red. It looks like the signal has cleared to a single yellow. So I'm now going to accelerate up towards the 50 mile per hour speed limit, crossing the points here. As I mentioned a little while ago, I am using the original Class 319, so I can use the Armstrong Powerhouse sound pack. And I'm also in a scenario which I created myself specifically for this video. I just felt that the default scenarios didn't offer enough variety by way of AI traffic. In fact, only the Class 319 and the Class 66 came with this route, not even an East Midlands Trains HST reskin, which would have made more sense to me than a Class 66. So the East Midlands Trains HSTs that you're seeing were actually reskinned by my friend Brad, He is BM Rail on YouTube. The speed limit now that we're on the main line has gone up to 110 miles per hour, although we're only permitted to go up to 100 miles per hour today. I've just idled the power to temporarily allow the train to coast until I can see what aspect the next signal is displaying. As you can see, the signal ahead has now changed to green, so I'm now going to go into full power to accelerate. For those of you who haven't watched any of my videos before, the whole idea of the route learning videos on the PTG Rail channel is to show you driving without the use of the HUD or a driving aid. For those more unfamiliar with Train Simulator, the HUD is a little window or bar which goes across the bottom of the screen, which shows you the track up to 1.5 miles ahead and shows you upcoming stations, signals and speed limits. This is something that drivers in real life don't have, and in fact they have to memorise and learn the routes which they're going to be driving on. And so I'm just trying to help other people be able to learn to drive without using the HUD, which provides a much more realistic and in-depth experience, both for the people watching these videos and also for the people who decide to try it out for themselves. You can now find the PTG Rail page on Facebook under PTG Rail, and if you like the page there you will get more updates on what I'm up to. And I also do take into consideration requests from people for videos that they would like to see made, and I'll make them if I can. And I do also now have a Patreon page, which allows people to become patrons of this channel and help support me financially in the work that I'm doing here. I currently have a target to try and get a new computer and also to be able to purchase more DLC so that I'm able to produce a much wider range of videos in a much higher quality than before. Alongside the route learning videos, I am planning another mini-series of videos in which I will visit each route in Train Simulator and record it documentary style, so we'll visit points of interest and stations along the route. Of course you'll see trains passing in these videos, and the whole idea is to help acquaint people more with the routes which they're driving on and learn more and connect with these routes more, especially if they're unfamiliar with the routes which they are going to be travelling on. Now that we've got a double yellow signal, I'm idling the power and allowing the train to coast. If we do see a single yellow signal ahead, I will apply the brakes to slow us down to ensure that we slow down in time for the red signal, which will be coming up after that. So just to say, I will be posting both the links for my Facebook page and my Patreon page in the description of this video. Upcoming videos which I am planning on making include a passenger journey along the Horseshoe Curve route. I'm also hoping to cover the Pacific Surfliner route, so that will be 2 different routes covered for my American subscribers there. I also plan on covering very soon the journey from Cairn, 4th Tahitian port on the West Coast Main Line over Shatton route, which goes through Morecambe, and I'm planning on doing that in an old British Rail Class 101 DMU. In addition to that, I'm also soon planning on covering the West Coast Main Line North route from Carlisle through to Glasgow Central in a Class 390 Pendolino, and that will be calling at Lockerbie, Motherwell and Glasgow. We now have an approach control double yellow signal, and the speed limit is dropping to 100 miles per hour as we enter this tunnel, so if we were in an HST we would have to slow down from 110 to 100 miles per hour here. The approach control signalling is because we are actually being passed back onto the slow line just before our stop at Flitwick. So I'm just going to go into step 2 power now to stop us losing too much more speed. We now have the approach controlled flashing single yellow signal, which is 1 mile from the next signal and 1¼ miles from the next speed limit, which is a speed limit of 40 miles per hour as we cross the junction onto the slow line. So we do need to take note here. After we've passed these buildings on the left, which are just going now, we need to look for some barns in the middle window, just on the right there. And when we come up to those barns, we then need to idle the power and apply the brakes into step 2. You can see the barns now, so I'm now going to make a step 2 brake application to slow down for the upcoming 40 mile per hour speed limit. We're now crossing the junction onto the slow line, so the speed limit is 40 miles per hour, though it will shortly be going up to 70 miles per hour just before the platform at Flitwick. You can now see the platform just coming up, and I'm going to brake just shortly before we enter the platform. And we do need to stop right at the end. So I'm going to brake just at this gantry here. Just to bring our speed off, I try to aim to enter the platforms at around 30 miles per hour, though it does depend on the length of the platform. It's now time to depart Flitwick, so once again I've just pressed R to close the doors, and now the door brake interlock light has come on. We can now depart. So departing Flitwick, the starting speed limit is 70 miles per hour, though it's quickly going up to 90 miles per hour at the speed board you can see just ahead. And we've got around 3 miles to go to our next stop, which is Harlington. For those of you unfamiliar with the Midland Main Line, it runs from the terminus at London St Pancras International, where there's also an interchange with Eurostar and South Eastern high-speed services. And then it runs north through Luton and Bedford up to Nottingham, Derby, Leicester and Sheffield. I believe they also run services out of St Pancras to Leeds and possibly some to Manchester, but I'm not 100% certain on that. One train that's definitely missing from the AI of this route, which I hope is made in the future, is the East Midlands Class 222 Meridian, which is a DMU that looks very similar to a Voyager. And that's becoming an increasingly common sight on this route, as they're gradually, I believe, replacing the HSTs which are currently running on many services along the Midland Main Line. Once we reach 80 miles per hour, I'm going to idle the power and allow the train to coast. At the next signal we see, once we've reached 80 miles per hour, we will then be 3/4 of a mile from our stop at Harlington. Shortly before Harlington station, the speed limit will be dropping to 80 miles per hour and then down to 70 miles per hour. I've just idled the power now at 80. So we should get a Morpeth board coming up shortly, warning us of these speed reductions. 2 overhead wire gantries past this Morpeth board. Here's number 1, and here's number 2. I will now make a step 2 brake application to slow down. As you can see, the speed limit has now dropped to 80 and will shortly be dropping further. And I've just had to apply the brakes slightly harder than I thought, as we're coming in just slightly quicker than I was expecting. And so we are in a step 3 brake application. I'm now reducing the brake application to step 2. We do need to stop here right at the end of the platform. You can see the 8-car stop sign just there, coming up on the left. So this is around the right place. Departing Harlington, the starting speed limit is 70 miles per hour, but it's quickly going back up to 90 miles per hour, and we've got around 4.5 miles to go to the next stop, which is Leagrave. As we reach the tall arched over bridge that you can see just coming up, we've then got just under 2 miles to go to our next stop. We now need to do some signal counting, and we need to use the AWS ramp of the second signal after this overbridge as the braking point for Leagrave. So this is the first signal after the overbridge. I'm now idling the power to allow the train to coast. The second signal is easily identifiable because it actually has a feather on top of the signal, a feather indicator which you'll be able to see in a minute. So as we reach the AWS ramp, I'll make an immediate step 2 brake application. You can now see the platforms at Leagrave just coming up, and so we're slowing down about right, I believe. Again, trying to enter the platform at no faster than 30 to 35 miles per hour. We do need to stop right at the end of the platform, as we do at every station on this journey. I am just adding one step of braking just to try and bring our speed off a little bit quicker. And now it seems to have slowed down just slightly too much. You can see the 8 coach stop sign just coming up on the left now. So we need to aim to stop around here. Departing Leagrave, the starting speed limit is 90 miles per hour, and we've got around 2.5 miles to go to the next stop, which is Luton. Coming up shortly, we will see an 85 mile per hour speed board, as the speed limit will drop to 85 miles per hour. As we pass this speed board, I'm going to idle the power and allow the train to coast, and then a couple of seconds later I'm going to apply the brakes for our stop at Luton. The speed limit entering the platform at Luton is down to 55 miles per hour. At 75 miles per hour I'm now going to idle the power, as I believe we can see the 85 mile per hour speed board just coming up. And now we're reaching the 85 mile per hour speed board. I'm making a step 2 brake application to slow us down for Luton. I believe this should slow us down about right, however I will add a step of braking if required. And this is why I like to use a step 2 brake application where possible, because it always gives you some leeway for extra brake force should you require it. But if you always drive with a step 3 brake application and you misjudge the braking distance, you've got no extra brake force other than emergency. And using the emergency brakes is a definite no-no on a normal passenger run, unless it actually is an emergency. So as you can see, we're coming into Luton now, and the speed limit has dropped to 55 miles per hour. I'm going to release the brakes slightly as I feel we're slowing down just slightly too quick now. And once again we do need to stop right at the end of the platform. Departing from Luton, the starting speed limit is 55 miles per hour, though it's quickly going up to 70 miles per hour, and we've got 1 mile to go to the next stop, which is Luton Airport Parkway. As you can see, the speed limit is now going up to 70 miles per hour, and in a short while it will be increasing again to 85 miles per hour. As we reach 50 miles per hour, I'm going to idle the power to allow the train to coast, and we're going to use the next signal as the braking point for Luton Airport Parkway. So as we reach the next signal, I will make a step 2 brake application. So here at Luton Airport Parkway we do need to stop by the S marker, which you can see just coming up on the left now. Departing Luton Airport Parkway, the starting speed limit is 85 miles per hour, and we've got just over 4.5 miles to go to the next stop, which is Harlington. Now that we've reached 85 miles per hour, I've gone down to step 2 of power, which should maintain us at around this speed. If the needle does climb slightly, I will reduce to step 1 power, just momentarily, and then go back up to step 2. We now have an approach controlled double yellow signal, and at this point I'm going to idle the power, as just after the next signal the speed limit is dropping to 75 miles per hour. And we've now got approach controlled signalling, as we will be going back onto the fast line just after our stop at Harlington. So as we see the next signal and get close to it, I'll then make a step 1 brake application just to try and ensure that we're not going above 75 miles per hour. You can now see the signal ahead. Now releasing the brakes, and we're going to use as a braking point for Harpenden this next overbridge just coming up. So at this point I'm now making a step 2 brake application, which should bring our speed down about right. It appears we're coming in slightly faster than I initially thought, so I've just applied a temporary step 3 brake application, and I will reduce this as we get further into the platform. One important thing to do when stopping is to try and not use a full service brake application right up to the moment of stopping. If you can try and stop in a lighter brake application, this will give a smoother stop for the passengers and less of a jolt. We should now be stopped in about the right place. Departing from Harpenden, the starting speed limit is 85 miles per hour, though it's quickly going down to 40 miles per hour as we reach the junction just ahead, where we turn on towards the fast line. And we've got around 4 3/4 miles to go to the next stop, which is St Albans. As you can see, if we were continuing along the slow line, the speed limit would now be going up to 90 miles per hour. However, we are now turning off on towards the first, and as we reach 40 miles per hour, I'm now going to temporarily idle the power and allow the train to coast until we're able to accelerate further once we've crossed this junction here. Now that we've passed all of the points, as we reach this gantry here at the start of this bridge, we can now accelerate up to the new speed limit. The speed limit is now 110 miles per hour, though as I said earlier, the maximum permitted speed for this train is 100 miles per hour, so I'll ensure that we don't go above that speed. As you can see, the speed limit has now dropped to 100 miles per hour, and at this point I'm going to idle the power as the 100 board is just over a mile from our next stop. And I've now got the brakes on for our stop at St Albans. The braking point is just before the AWS ramp of the signal, which we just reached there. I will apply the brakes a little harder if required. As I said, the brakes on this train don't seem all that good, and so at times I'm underestimating the distance it requires to stop. I am now going into step 3 of braking. As you can see, the platform at St Albans just coming up, so I want to ensure that I'm slowing down in time. Again, aiming to enter the platform at no faster than 30 to 35 miles per hour. I have now reduced the braking to step 2, as we should be entering the platform at around 30. And once again we do need to stop at the end of the platform. Departing from St Albans, the starting speed limit is 100 miles per hour, and this is the longest distance between any of the stops on this journey, with just under 16 miles to go to the next stop, which is West Hempstead Thameslink. Speed limit has now gone back up to 110 miles per hour, so if we were in an HST or a Class 222, at this point we could accelerate up to that speed. As we approach 100 miles per hour, I will reduce the power to step 3, which should maintain us at around that speed. We're now passing through Radlett Station. I have now reduced the power to step 3, but I do need to keep an eye on the speed to ensure that we don't break the speed limit. On a couple of occasions I will temporarily have to reduce power to step 2, just to ensure that we lose a little bit of speed. In fact, I'm going to do that now until we're doing around 98 to 99 miles per hour, and then go back up to step 3 power. We're now passing Elstree and Borehamwood Station, which I believe is the first station inside London. We're now about to pass through a tunnel. I'm not sure what the name of it is, but I will try and look it up, see if I can get it into the captions on this video. The speed limit entering the tunnel is down to 100 miles per hour, and then it goes back up to 110 miles per hour as we leave the tunnel. Just reducing the power to step 2 again momentarily, just to lose a little bit of speed before going back into step 3 at power again. We're now passing Mill Hill Broadway Station. We're now passing through Hendon Station, and we now have 3¼ miles to go to our stop at West Hempstead Thameslink. At the long overbridge that you can see coming up just ahead, I'm going to idle the power as the speed limit will shortly be dropping down to 95 miles per hour. From this point on, I'm just going to allow the train to continue to coast. We're now passing through Cricklewood Station. We've now got 1¼ miles to go to West Hempstead Thameslink. I'm now going to make a step 2 brake application. Just on this left-hand curve here before the overbridge just ahead, and this should hopefully slow us down about right. I'd also just like to apologise a minute ago if you heard me take in a big breath. Normally I mute the microphone and then take in a big breath before I start speaking, so that I can try and take as few breaths as possible when speaking, but I didn't realise as I did it that the microphone was still live and I'd forgotten to mute it. I did unintentionally release the brakes slightly there, so I've just made a slightly harder brake application to bring our speed off. And now I'm going back into step 2 to see if that should be enough to slow us down. Once again, we do need to stop at the end of the platform. Departing West Hampstead Thameslink, the starting speed limit is 85 miles per hour, although it is soon going down to 80 miles per hour, and we've got around 3¾ miles to go to our final stop for this journey, which is St Pancras Thameslink. As you can see, the speed limit has now dropped to 80 miles per hour just before entering this tunnel. And shortly after leaving this tunnel, the speed limit will be dropping down to 50 miles per hour. So as we accelerate through this tunnel, as we get towards 70 miles per hour, I'm going to idle the power and allow the train to coast. And then at the end of this tunnel there is a light curve, and as we enter the curve I'm going to make a step 2 brake application to slow down for the 50 mile per hour speed limit. We've now reached 70 miles per hour, so I'm now idling the power to allow the train to coast. And Now I'm looking for the small curve coming up just ahead, ready to make the brake application. You can see that we're entering the curve now, so I'm now applying brakes to step 2. The speed limit entering this tunnel is now 75 miles per hour, where we're continuing on towards London St Pancras International, the main station. But it's 50 miles per hour crossing these points. And we are going downhill slightly, so I'm just applying step 1 of brakes to try and ensure that we don't break the speed limit here. And now I'm braking step 2 for a 30 mile per hour speed limit, which is coming up just ahead. In fact, I'm not sure if I'm slowing down quick enough, so I'm just going up to step 3 in braking to ensure that I am. Now at 30 miles per hour, I've released the brakes and I'm allowing the train to continue to coast. And I will use power as necessary just to ensure that we don't lose too much speed. We're now passing through Kentish Town Station. The speed limit will shortly be dropping down to 15 miles per hour, which I believe will be just at the other end of this tunnel. So I'm going to make a brake application now to step 1, and I'll increase the brake force as required to slow down for the 15 speed limit. I've now increased the brake force to full service as I've just realised we're actually on it, and we've just entered the 15 speed limit now. I'm now going to allow the train to coast at a little below 15 miles per hour, as we'll shortly be going on a downward gradient as steep as 1 in 38, which is very steep for a train, and so the train will have a tendency to run away with me. So as we see the speed start to increase along here, I'm just going to use step 1 of braking, just to ensure that we don't break the 15 mile per hour speed limit. The speed limit will be increasing again to 30 miles per hour just before the next tunnel, which is the start of the main tunnel for Thameslink, which goes under London and comes out the other side near Blackfriars. At this point the speed limit has now gone up to 30 miles per hour, but rather than powering up to that speed, as we're on such a steep downward gradient, I've just released the brakes and I'm going to allow the train to coast up to 30 miles per hour. Now at 30 miles per hour, in fact I think it looks like I've gone just slightly above that, which I didn't mean to. In real life I could probably be in trouble for that. I am now using the brakes to control our speed to ensure that we don't accelerate any further than this. St Pancras Thameslink station will be coming up very shortly. There is no clear stopping point here, so it's a case of having to try and work out where I think the right place would be to stop. Here at St Pancras International, I'm aiming to stop at the benches you can see just coming up on the left, just after this last computer information screen you can see, which was blue just before that. To me, this seems like it's about the right place to stop. Thank you very much for watching. I really hope that you've enjoyed the video. If you did, then please do give a like and a share, and feel free to leave a comment. And don't forget you can find me on Facebook, and you can also find the link to my Patreon page in the description of this video. Again, thank you for watching.